Xiaomi was one of the first to get this to market, a flagship Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 phone. So the 8 Gen 2, big improvements, really all-round improvements with RAM, faster UFS 4.0 support for the storage, faster RAM, improved GPU, CPU. You get the idea. It is Qualcomm's new top dog, and this phone, the Xiaomi 13 Pro, is in many ways the Xiaomi 12S Ultra, just now as a 13 Pro, but they changed the frame, the look, the camera module. So what is getting a lot of hype, of course, with this setup is it's got a 1-inch sensor. It's one of very few phones that have the IMX989 in it. Now they've co-engineered it with Leica, so it's got Leica optics in here, and that is an f1.9 lens, and it also does have their color grading too, different color modes you can select. So this model here does have their 120 watt super fast charging, charges in about 20 minutes. It's got a screen that's basically the same as the screen we had with the 12S Ultra, but it's now brighter. It peaks at 1900 nits. This import version is, of course, the Chinese release, and I bought it from Trading Shenzhen. They do include in the box a power plug adapter because, as you see, we've got the two-prong style here that they use in China. It's also the same as the US. 120 watts. It does have a Type A port there. So the cable is Type C to Type A, typical Xiaomi cable. They're reasonably good quality. And we do get a SIM tray tool. There's a little bit of paperwork. That's all in Chinese. And then this, which is our TPU case. Now, this TPU case is just a clear style one there. Pretty basic, but it's good that it is included in the box. And being a one that comes from the manufacturer, it does fit the phone perfectly. So ceramic back right here, and it does feel good. Looks really good. So it's quite scratch resistant, but if you drop it, there is that risk of it shattering, but ceramic is quite tough. Metal frame all around the outside, really good feel to it. Feels very solid. Reminds me a little bit of some of the Huawei phones when you look at it here because it's squared off bottom. Now, this Type-C port, still not happening. You knew I was going to say this. No video out, no USB 3.1, so this is a slow USB 2 port, and if you've recorded some really large video files, say 4K or 8K, then they're so slow to move over and move them off the phone. Microphone, our SIM trays right here, antenna lines, one of two down-firing loudspeakers. Up the top, we do have what looks like two IR transmitters. There is just one, I believe. And we have, one of them is just a port for the loudspeaker, I believe there. And then two microphones here at the top. So there's no rear-facing microphone here that we might see with, say, some other brands. Now, the phone is a little thick, so it's about 8.7 millimeters. Camera module sticks out a huge amount there. It's a little bit chunky, and it is a heavy phone, so it weighs about 129 grams or so. So yeah, on the heavy side, it's certainly not a light phone. So these buttons here, they're metal frame all around it, curved screen, curved glass there. The front screen, this is covered with Gorilla Glass Victus, and this is a 6.73-inch screen. So in-screen fingerprint reader, which is located here. I'll just test that out now. It's very accurate, but I don't find it as good as the Vivo X90 Pro's fingerprint reader. That, for me, is the absolute best. Still, it's not bad, and we have a very nice screen here. So this is basically a Quad HD Plus screen, and we are looking at OLED. 1 billion colors, 120 hertz, Dolby Vision, HDR10 Plus. High brightness mode outputs about 1200 nits, but it can peak in sunlight just for short periods of up to 1900. So it is very bright. So the camera that's in the cutout right here, that's 32 megapixels, and this is only able to shoot 1080p 30 frames per second. This is another big area that Xiaomi just simply does not want to improve upon at all. I don't know why, what the reason is behind it. So no 1080p 60 frames per second, no 4K 30 or 60, and they call this a flagship, yet it doesn't have a flagship spec, I think, front-facing camera. That is truly disappointing. Now, the bezels are not bad at all. The curvature of the screen, you can see it causes a little bit of distortion here with that OLED screen. So you can see on the edge here, especially on this side, it's got a bit of a blue tint to it, but then when you shift it over this way, it disappears. I'm not really too fond of curved screens. I do actually prefer to have a completely flat screen, but I will give it this, that when you're holding it, yes, the curvature does make it feel a little bit better in hand. And when you're swiping from side to side, say for your gestures back and whatnot, it does make that a little easier and more comfortable. So this main camera module, this is the 1-inch sensor. It's the IMX989. It's got an f1.9 aperture. And we do have autofocus with the ultra wide that can give us their super macro mode. That's 50 megapixels. So it's 1-inch sensor, 50, 50, and then 50. A dual tone LED flash here. And yes, you can see the Leica branding. So they are co-engineering this, the lenses, and then the color science with Leica, which is great to see this partnership, of course. So we have this one piece of glass that's covering all three of those lenses there. Now you see these three little holes. There is laser assist focus with this phone. A little bit more on that display, because this is the main feature of a phone, is the display that you're always looking at, you're always using. And it is an excellent panel. This is a top class, top level, top tier screen that's in this. So as I mentioned before, we got that 1440p plus resolution, or WQHD plus. Now it is by default not actually enabled. They keep it on full HD plus, and I've kind of discovered why they do this because of the battery life, and I'll get onto that later on. But I will tell you now that it's not so great, especially at that high resolution and running 120 Hz. So we don't have with this phone, we've seen it on some other Xiaomi's, a 90 Hz option, which is a bit of a shame. So you've got just 60 for battery savings or the 120 Hz. Now right now you are seeing a little bit of banding. I can see it coming through on camera. Now in person, I'm not seeing any flicker to the screen at all, but I will say that sometimes when I've quickly looked at the screen at a bit of an angle, I might have seen something happening there, a bit of a shimmer going on, but I don't normally see it. I am someone that is a little bit sensitive to flickering OLED or AMOLED displays, but there is no DC dimming option in here. Now, you've got all the typical settings that you've come to know for some time now, for some years, and default is vivid, which I've left it on. Original color, which is probably what I run myself, and then you've got advanced settings, and you can go along and just tweak this, all right? You've got more options in there, including the RGB color space, HSV color space there too, contrast, gamma, which is really quite good. Really a lot of options in there for people that just want to get the best out of the screen. Adaptive colors, adjust the colors to ambient light. I haven't been using this, and it's there too if you want that. And of course, color temperature adjustment, you are able to tweak that. So the screen is using LTPO tech, and as mentioned before, so it's 1900 nits. Now in direct sunlight, you can see everything. You can reply to WhatsApp messages, do everything as you would. You can see it really well because it's just so bright. Now we'll hold that brightness depending on how the phone's going to heat up for a limited time, so be aware of that. Now the banding you're seeing, that's just on camera there too. So real world images look excellent. Very, very good screen here. For me, it's just, I really do wish it had a dedicated DC dimming option that sadly, it does not have. And you can see those blacks there looking very deep. So I've been using the phone for a week, and MIUI 14, first used it on the 12S Ultra, and I thought the animations seemed to be a little bit better. And everything in general is very quick. What I've noticed in my time testing out is occasionally the touch optimization, or just actually detecting my finger when I swipe for the gestures, sometimes hasn't worked. It's not 100%. I believe Xiaomi's got a bit of room there to just tweak it and improve things. Swiping down for the toggles, I have once or twice seen it load in a little sluggish, not being as fast as you'd expect. Now my model here has 256 gigabytes of storage with 8 gigabytes of RAM. I don't expect to see any lags, especially with the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is a really impressive step up from the previous versions, as you see soon. So the UI, there's a lot of things you can tweak with it, and this is the Chinese version, so there was a bit of bloatware. I won't go into that in detail because I'm sure most of us kind of know what MIUI is like. If you use MIUI 13, 14's just pretty much the same with a few extra little things, and they've really focused on, well, according to Xiaomi, tweaking that performance. So you can see at the moment there are no UI lags or stutters coming through. It seems to all be running at 120 frames per second. The settings as well, that seems to be very smooth. What about Twitter too? Because sometimes that can be a bit choppy. The scrolling had a problem on various different versions of MIUI 13 for me, but no, look at that. That is really smooth. Very good there. And just a few other things that I'm sure will probably pop up. So camera 2 probe, it tells me we've got level 3. Great, that is full access. And Netflix, just looking at the playback spec here, so it is supporting full HD. We do have a Widevine level 1 cert. And yes, we've got Dolby Vision and HDR10 support here with Netflix. Now do remember, I have the Chinese ROM here, so it is not the global ROM. There are some differences. There is a firmware update already. This was a big bug fix one that improved the camera, so I have the latest camera patch at the time of posting this, of course. Now free space, you're looking at approximately 220 when you first get hold of this shiny new phone. Remember, no micro SD card support there, unfortunately. That's gone. Now, if you get the 128 gigabyte model, you don't get UFS 4.0 spec. You get 3.1, but this has the faster UFS 4.0 spec, and it is basically the same kind of speeds I see out of PCIe 3.0 SSDs and Ultrabooks, laptops, gaming PCs. Very good. This is crazy fast for a phone, and it's certainly not going to bottleneck at all, this particular model. Now look at this score here for Antutu. Incredible. We're getting at the now 1.3 million points here for Antutu. That's about a 30% increase over what we had with the previous generation, Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. So the Gen 2 is, for me, an all-rounded step up in all areas. So CPU performance is excellent. GPU's gone right up. Memory, UI performance, everything. It's not a slouch at all. This is an impressive step up. It's none of that, just tiny little tweaks we had really with the other versions. They've done a good job there. Qualcomm, and I think it's because of the pressure from MediaTek's really just pushed them to do this. So safety net status is a pass here, so that's good. Banking apps will work on this. It does have NFC, of course. What about throttling? Now, there's one phone that I've tested out, and I'll do a comparison too to this, and that's the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. It only throttled 7%. This throttles just over 20% the performance when you push it really hard. So that's mostly the Adreno 740 graphics that is stressed out here. And why is it dropping down the performance? That's because it's getting a little warm. So they have to throttle it, Xiaomi. But the good news is it completes this test. If you watch a lot of my videos, you'll be surprised, or not, at the previous models. There's been a lot of them from Xiaomi that just crash and burn, as I call it. It just won't finish this test. It gets too hot, you get an error message that it's overheating, boots you out of games, applications, whatever. Not happening with this model. So in a way, it's good that they've throttled it this much. At least it is stable, and that's kind of what you want. Now, battery life, this test here, I set it, it's a fixed battery life benchmark test, of course, at the QHD plus resolution. So the highest res, the 1440p basically, and then 120 hertz. It kills the battery. It really hits it hard. This is a lower score than the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. Now the battery capacity is not huge on this model. It's under 5,000 milliamp hours. It's 4,800 off the top of my head. There's a pop-up now with the correct amount there. And yeah, I was hoping for a little bit more than this. Now I struggled to get over about 6.5 hours of on-screen time with this phone. So far, I think because of all the optimizations, perhaps the new firmware, battery life, I would not rate as good. I would rate it as average to poor, really. At least we have this, fully charging in 20 minutes. Okay, so if you want to use your old-fashioned analog 3.5mm, well, it's not going to, of course, plug straight into it. You can't do that. There is no 3.5mm jack. Unfortunately, we're just going to have to get over it. I know I'm still not over it. But anyway, it's gone for good, just like micro SD. Get yourself one of these, and then you can use your old 3.5mm tech. And even better, get yourself some LDAC supporting codec earbuds, and then it basically sounds like wired anyway. Now, 3.5mm 2 Type-C sounds really good. Voice call qualities, very good. Active noise cancelling from the top microphone, top 2 microphones there. And what about the loudspeakers? So we've got the downwards firing one, and then that little hole at the top, the port next to the IR transmitter, and then the earpiece. What I will say about these loudspeakers is they are lacking in volume a little. They sound good bass, good mids, but they should be a bit louder. And here's a sample of them now at 100% volume. As for gaming performance, well, there is some good news here because it's a super powerful chip and it's a big step up. So Genshin Impact on the absolute top settings, and this is console level graphics here, looks great, does run just at 60 the whole time. Now, around about the 15-20 minute mark, it does drop down the frame rate. I do see it drop down to the mid-50s a little bit. Now, this is higher than about 45 frames per second I would get on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. So it's a nice little boost. It's not quite as good, though, as the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. That one can run at 60 frames per second just the whole entire time, and it doesn't seem to throttle at all. Now, how do I know these frame rates? Well, we've got here our game turbo. So you swipe that, and you can look at the frame rate. So right now, it's 60 frames per second. But yes, if I game for 30 minutes and then check on it later on, it will be sometimes 52, 51, 55 frames per second, and that's the difference there. You do see it drop down a little bit, but overall, really good. Now, what about thermals? It gets warm, it gets hot. You feel it around the frame. You feel it around this area here, obviously where the chipset is, and more on the side of the frame on the top here, but it's not alarming temperatures like some of their other models that would hit 50 degrees. And I don't get the message that pops up on the screen saying it's overheating, booting me out of the game, and just crashing and burning. That doesn't happen anymore. So that is a big improvement compared to some of their other models. So good thermals. Yes, it throttles down, and it's not the fastest out there, but it's still a big step up from the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 with gaming performance. What about those cameras then? So in order to gauge just where the Xiaomi 13 Pro sits compared to the competitors out there, I've already posted 2 camera comparisons. Now, one is up against the iPhone 14 Pro Max. The other is against the Mate 50 Pro and the Vivo X90 Pro Plus, which are for me the current in the top 3, definitely when it comes to still performance, that is. The video quality I've noticed with the Xiaomi 13 Pro here that it's overexposed a little bit, a little too white. Selfies are a little too white as well. The optimization with the Chinese ROM is different from the global ROMs. And video quality, when you pan around, you do notice some judders. Now, the video quality itself is quite good. It's just those judders tend to ruin it a little bit. And the audio bitrate is finally 320 kilobits per second with Xiaomi, which is great. However, the microphones are overly sensitive to wind noise. Any slight breeze or even just moving the phone about quickly will generate wind noise on those mics, which destroys the audio quality a little. Now, do check out those camera comparisons because that will give you a really good idea of just how these cameras fit in compared to the competition there. So that covers it all in that video. So please do check it out. It covers video performance, 4K 60 front-facing camera, low light video, portrait shots. It is all there. So they are very good cameras with huge potential. I just hope to see better and more mature firmware coming through for these cameras in the future, which I'm sure is going to happen. It's just a matter of time, and we're going to have the global release too, which will probably focus heavily on improving the camera performance. So what is the final verdict here with Xiaomi's 13 Pro? To me, it feels like almost a rushed out product. Part of it is because I've already reviewed the 12S Ultra. It feels like a rehash of a lot of the sensors and hardware, which it is, but it's an all new design. It's got IP68 dust and waterproof rating to it, which is great to have from Xiaomi, but there's still those shortcomings that are always there with Xiaomi. It's like, do they not want to improve? Do they not want to have flagship features other competitors have? I have no idea what they are thinking by not giving this phone, especially now. I mean, this was their chance. Xiaomi missed an opportunity here to finally give us a 4K front-facing camera, finally give us 1080p 60 with a front-facing camera on a flagship, at least that. They missed the opportunity to give us Type-C video out, clone display, doesn't have to be desktop mode. And what about USB 3.2 faster transfer speeds? No, we are stuck at terribly slow USB 2.0. It's like transferring files over from like 2010. It's shocking. Come on, Xiaomi, you are really falling behind when it comes to some things. Yet the phone's build quality is fantastic. It is really well put together. Love the ceramic back. We've got Gorilla Glass Victus. Fantastic 1440p display on it. It's got a lot of good things going for it, and it has huge potential with its cameras. But again, it feels a bit rushed here. It feels like they haven't quite got to grasp, which is kind of odd because the 12S Ultra has been out for a while with the same sensor, the same main sensor. It feels like they still have a lot of work to do with the cameras, Like when you look at the selfie performance, when you look at the video performance with judders coming through, a lot of room for improvement. So I am gonna sit back here and say, maybe wait for the Xiaomi 13 Pro, the global release, and see if they've really matured with the software, with the cameras, and see what happens. Other than that, if you wanna get a 1-inch sensor phone, and you don't mind having to import a phone, the Vivo X90 Pro Plus is another one of my favorites, and I would take it over this model here because it's got video out, faster USB, more options and features when it comes to the cameras, and better camera quality too. And it's got Zeiss optics with their T-Star coating. So thank you so much for watching my review here of Xiaomi's 13 Pro, the Chinese imported model here. I will be back with the global version, hopefully, if Xiaomi sends it out to me. And do check out my review of that Vivo X90 Pro Plus and those camera comparisons that I mentioned.